Worry lines can run deep. With increasing commodity prices, higher price volatility, and rising input costs, America's farmers rely on crop insurance to protect their crops and livestock. Crop insurance, providing peace of mind now and for the next generation of agriculture.
We're here with Congressman John Garamendi of California's 3rd District. Congressman Garamendi is a member of the Agriculture Committee. Could you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and also about your district?
Sure. I grew up in California, grew up on my family's cattle ranch, which began in the 1860s. I'm one of 7 children, so cattle ranching is my background, and my wife and I have operated our own cattle ranch for the last 35 years. We have 6 children, we have 11 grandchildren, and we've got enough cows to keep us busy. So it's a cow-calf operation. Before I became a member of Congress, I was active in California public policy. I was in the Assembly beginning in 1974, the California State Senate until '90, then the State Insurance Commissioner. So I dealt with insurance matters until the mid-'90s when I became the Deputy Secretary at the United States Department of Interior and was there for a little over 3 years. Came back to be Insurance Commissioner in California in 2003. Served there for 4 years and then became the Lieutenant Governor of the state of California. Now, Congress. Been in Congress, this is my 3rd term in Congress, beginning in a special election in 2009. Being on the Agriculture Committee has been a very, very important part of my work because my district in California is a very large district. It has a $3 billion farm gate, and virtually everything you can imagine that's in the grocery store is produced in that district, with the exception of avocados. All the rest of it's there in one form or another. We have a great wine industry. Most of California's rice is in my district. The district actually begins at San Francisco Bay. Mile 0 of the Sacramento River goes up through the great Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta and continues on until mile 199 plus of the Sacramento River. So 200 miles of the Sacramento River Valley, it's my district. It is a spectacular district. Great agriculture, and right in the center of it is the greatest agricultural research institution in the world, University of California, Davis. So it is all there. It's exciting, it's fun, it's challenging, incredible issues. The water issues of California, that's this district. So we're deeply involved in all of those complex water issues, flood issues, insurance issues, like flood insurance for cities and farms, and trying to prevent floods, levees. So it's a wonderful challenge. I love it.
We just finally finished a farm bill process that has been going on for a few years. Could you tell us a bit about that process and then maybe 2 or 3 things you'd like to highlight from that piece of legislation?
Well, you're certainly correct. That process seemed to take forever. There were very controversial things in the bill that eventually began to get worked out. Certainly the milk issue. What are we going to do about milk? Well, I do have dairies in my district, and I also have the processing plants in the district. The thing that was so difficult is that there was not an agreement between the dairy industry. Some wanted change, others wanted different change, and that fight took a long time to sort itself out. The issue of rice was also a central part of this bill. Southern rice out of Arkansas is different than California rice. And so the rice program, we eventually worked out a compromise within the rice industry that allowed for a variation in the way in which rice was to be handled on the insurance side of it, on the subsidy side. What I was particularly pleased about this bill is that it fit my district very well. We have one of the greatest aquatic species issues, the rivers, and we also have waterfowl. Turns out the rice industry in California is where the waterfowl spend their winter. We do have refuges, but the refuges are very small when compared to the ability of these waterfowl, ducks and geese, and of every variety, to be able to winter and to really thrive in the rice fields. So that was worked out. The conservation programs in this bill are good for my district. We spent a lot of time making sure that was the case. Agricultural research and specialty marketing. All of these things are in the Farm Bill. Very, very important for a district like mine that is heavily dependent on exports. We have all kinds of nuts. I'm referring to tree nuts, not the human nuts, although we have some of them. So the marketing programs become very, very important. All of that's in the bill. All in all, it's a good bill for agriculture, a good bill for my district.
The other big issue that's been ongoing in California is this big drought that you've been having. Yeah. Could you talk a bit about what that drought means for your district, but also what Congress can do to help mitigate it?
Well, I can tell you what that drought means to me. I've had to sell a third of my herd, and the drought's not over. So we may wind up selling even more of our herd, and that'll affect us in the years ahead because we'll have fewer cows, and that'll cut down on the income. It'll take us a while to rebuild. I'm not any different than the rest of the cattle industry in California. All the cattle industry in California is in a world of hurt. We've had to go out and buy additional supplemental hay that we did not have to do before. The price of hay increased by more than 50% during the last 4 or 5 months. And so that's a big strain. We also know that perhaps 25 to 30% of the rice industry that I represent will be fallowed. There won't be water. And it may even get more serious than that because this drought is not over. We did have some rain. The grass turned green. Is it going to grow much? We don't know. It won't if there's not more rain. And the reservoirs filled just a little tiny bit, but not enough to really make any difference. We're looking at a situation in the Delta, which I represent and live in the Delta, where the fresh water may be just cut off. They're talking about blocking some of the sloughs, which previous years had fresh water. They may not have fresh water. They're going to have salt water. And if that happens, there's a major, major problem because the tree crops and the vineyards may very well die. And certainly if you put salt water on them, they will die. So we're looking at a very, very difficult situation throughout my entire district. Southern California, which Northern California loves to kick around, actually got ahead of this issue and did what all of California has to do. And that is they prepared for a drought. They invested in Southern California $12 billion over the last 15 to 20 years building reservoir and storage capacity. 25 years ago, they had 300,000 acre-feet of storage. Today, they have 3 million plus acre-feet of storage, and their reservoirs are full. So they're going to go through this drought, at least this year and on into next year, with a reduction, with some conservation, but not an emergency. Northern California, from the Tehachapi's north, it's an emergency. It is very, very serious. And why? Because Northern California didn't plan for the drought. They didn't save the water. They didn't store the water. They didn't pay much attention to Genesis and to the Pharaoh and Joseph. When Joseph told the Pharaoh, hey, you got 7 good years coming, followed by 7 lean years, you better put aside the food. They did. This goes back 3,000 years. California, at least Northern California, hasn't yet learned that lesson. So we have to do that. We've got to build the reservoirs. We've got to take full use of the underground aquifers, which we have mostly depleted, but not used as a reservoir, as a safety, as an insurance policy for droughts. We have to do that. We need to deal with the Delta, but we don't need a $25 billion boondoggle, which is the twin tunnel program that the governor of California and other water interests are promoting. It just doesn't work. You're spending $25 billion and you don't create one new storage reservoir, not 1 gallon of new water. But that's a big fight. And yes, I'm involved in that fight, and we have a better idea. We have an idea where for half of that amount of money, you can create 5 million acre-feet of new water. For example, the 5th largest river on the west coast of the Western Hemisphere, from Alaska to Chile, is the sanitation plants in Southern California. They're taking water from Northern California, pumping it 500 miles south, cleaning it, use it once, clean it to a higher standard than the day it arrives in Southern California, and dump it in the ocean. There's an easy 500,000 acre-feet of water readily available in Southern California within the next 5 years. That's an enormous amount of water. It takes pressure off the Delta, it takes pressure off Northern California, and it provides even more safety for Southern California. Those are the kind of things we need to do.
Thanks so much for that. And lastly, aside from the drought and the Farm Bill, are there any other agriculture issues you've been working on recently that you'd like to speak about?
There are numerous agricultural issues. There are trade deals going on. The Trans-Pacific Partnership. What does it mean to my district? We don't know. It's all done in secret, and we don't know, but we're concerned. Concerned for a variety of reasons. I'm concerned for my agricultural industry. Will they have better markets, or will they just be facing foreign competition? I'm concerned for the manufacturers in my district, where it's quite possible that the Trans-Pacific Partnership will make it even more difficult to manufacture everything in the United States. So we're watching it very, very closely. The international trade negotiations are of utmost importance. And thus far, some of my district's been left out. The rice industry was left out of the Korea deal, to the detriment of the rice industry.
Thanks so much for being here, Congressman John Garamendi from California's 3rd District. Thanks for joining us on Agri-Pulse today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you.